You are a traditional Catholic. Do you attend the traditional Latin Mass as well?
Well, of course.
Okay. Kind of figured, but I need to clarify that.
No, I'm sorry. I don't mean to be flippant. I'm just, I will say this. I've been at the traditional Latin Mass for a couple of years. And of course that's a very difficult process for all of us as we realize that the traditional Latin Mass really gives us the faith. I don't know what to say except that I feel that really my Catholicism became real when I started attending the traditional Latin Mass.
A Louisiana father of 5 paying a steep price for his Catholic faith, literally. Ross McKnight says his business is now under attack after this Instagram post commemorating the Catholic celebration of the Sacred Heart of Jesus, which occurs every June and has been since the 17th century, and warning of the, quote, attempted coup of the month, referring to Pride festivities. He sells a delicacy called foie gras, which is rich, buttery duck or goose liver. And now he's lost 2/3 of his customers as critics accuse him of being anti-LGBTQ. Ross McKnight, owner of Blackwater Foie Gras, joins us now. Ross, thank you for joining us this morning. Why do you think that you enraged the Pride activists so much so that they are now launching this economic warfare on you?
Certainly. Well, when there's no philosophical underpinning to your life, I think the only thing you're left with is rage. So, if you can't have your will, then all you can do is respond with rage. So it's perfectly, it makes perfect sense to me, right? That would be the response.
Yeah.
So I am very pleased and honored to have Ross McKnight join us today for this segment of the Remnant Underground. Ross, welcome to the show. The reason I was so interested in your story is you seem to have done something that a lot of us are talking about doing, like don't be afraid, go out and assert yourself, be a soldier for Jesus Christ, wear the Sacred Heart as you're doing right now proudly and not be afraid of it. And so I wanted to just kind of check in with you to see what it's like now when they sort of lowered the boom on you. Why don't you just tell us a little bit about what happened? Tell us your story a little bit and what it was like to get hit that hard by the far left.
Well, I think just the ordinary human experience of anyone in that situation is what I experienced, which is, those feelings of distress and anguish and wondering,
Sure.
What you've done or or what's going to become of you. But it was momentary because it was perhaps a day of real strife, internal strife, and then this is how our Lord, through the devotion of the Sacred Heart, wanted to be promoted. And so we've just been a passenger on the ride since about last Tuesday or Wednesday. And if I told you the sequence of events that's occurred since then, you would see very apparent the active will of God moving real pieces on the chessboard, right? So we are greatly comforted, and we just want to ensure that we're not getting in the way, and we just want to continue to do God's will. And please pray, whoever's out there, pray for us to have the virtue of humility and to stay out of the way of the work of Providence.
Mm-hmm. Well, the question of the hour, I guess, because this is what they're accusing all of us are, but are you a hater, Ross?
Am I a hater?
You're a hater.
Yes, I do hate evil.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, I have to say, certainly, who was it who said that, real love requires real hate? I get my quotations mixed up, but I'm sure if you type that in, whoever said that, it'll pop right up. But real love requires real hatred of evil. And so, of course, certainly I hate the evil that seems to be a sort of tidal wave that we're sort of standing at the base of, watching as it overshadows us. But no, I certainly don't hate the people that I've worked with and have had relationships with. And I wish the best for them, and I think that they're now haunted by the Sacred Heart because of they've done their work to promote him, and I think he'll have his say in their lives as well.
So you're a family man. Like you got five kids, little kids, and you run a business. And essentially, all you did was in the month of June, Pride Month, you came out with a very established Catholic position on pride in the Sacred Heart of Jesus, second person of the Blessed Trinity, true God, true man, Jesus Christ. That's it, right? That's now we've come to a point where doing that is considered a hateful thing to do. Is that where we're at?
Yeah, certainly. I don't want to downplay that. I definitely used some language that was strong, which is that it is an attack, and that we're fighting an enemy, which is tried to, especially since we always have these sort of like inflection points in history that we can reference. They're never the beginning of the story, but they help us contextualize everything. So 1926 in Louisiana, when the French language was suppressed in the schools, was, I think, also a very intentional suppression of the Catholic culture, because it was inextricably tied to the language. And so I made a statement that outside forces of Americanization, right? This is part of that. We're kind of forcing these ideas down our throats, and we're Louisiana Catholics. I couldn't tell you how many Catholics there are in Louisiana, but it's probably a majority, of the population. And so the statement referenced that cultural war, and that this was a great part of it, and that, of course, as Louisiana Catholics, we should be celebrating the Sacred Heart.
Right.
So, yes.
Well, it's interesting because what you're referencing back to goes back, obviously, to the 1700s when our Lord appeared to St. Margaret Mary Alacoque. We just made a pilgrimage there just a few weeks ago to revisit and rekindle our own devotion to the Sacred Heart of Jesus. But that's a long time ago. And then I think it's I'm sure you've done this research as well. I think it was 1856, Pius IX established the Feast of the Sacred Heart of Jesus the week after the Corpus Christi. And ever since then, Ross, June has been the month of the Sacred Heart of Jesus. Now, we're not entitled to that for some reason. I mean, this is an established historic Catholic feast and a month dedicated to the Sacred Heart of Jesus, and yet we are the ones who are considered haters for insisting on our traditions vis-a-vis the Sacred Heart devotion. It's a very strange thing that doesn't come up more in the media, that the establishment of the precedent of the Catholic month of the Sacred Heart.
Yeah, I would say it's a direct warfare, correct? Because they say love is love, and yet they're directly counterpoised against the all-consuming fire of love for all mankind, which is that is the image of the Sacred Heart, right? A heart consumed by fire with love for all mankind. And so, yes, the battle is pitched by these forces, right? It's the spiritual battle is pitched, the physical battle is pitched, and it's, we're so distracted, but if we step back and think about it a little bit, it's very clear. It's a very clear battle, and it's been going on, as you mentioned, Margaret Mary Alacoque. So there's something very interesting going on right now as we speak, because it is the duty of the King of France to be the primary promoter of the Sacred Heart of Jesus. And Louis XIV declined to honor the request of heaven. And Louis XVI consecrated France too late, as I believe it was said in the apparitions of Fatima. And so guess what we're still waiting for? The consecration of France to the Sacred Heart. And we're still waiting for the King of France to honor the request of heaven, to emblazon the Sacred Heart in the royal arms of France. France is supposed, it seems very clear to me that France is still going to lead the restoration. And Louisiana, the heart of France, still lives in Louisiana. And I think that's become clearer and clearer that this is no accident, this is no mistake. And we just, if we can promote the Sacred Heart, if we can allow God to work, if we can just get, all of us just need to nod our heads a little bit. I don't think it takes much for us to just say yes and do our little part. But I think there's something afoot here. I don't know. Sorry,
No,
there's been a lot going on, and I'm a bit scatterbrained, but
no, I think you're right.
the hand of providence has become very clear in all of
Mhm.
this.
The timing is interesting too. That this happened just less than a week after the Chartres pilgrimage in France, which of course is 100% dedicated to the Sacred Heart of Jesus. And I noticed that badge that you're wearing, it's essentially a Vendée badge, where the people of the Vendée, just like us, agreed to fight for the Sacred Heart and for the traditions of the Church and for the throne of France. And they died for it. 500,000 of them were killed. And you know what? You know what made me really want to talk to you was something you said. I saw in one of the interviews that you had, which is an idea that we've been playing with a lot. And that's, I think if I'm going to paraphrase you, not quote you, but you said something like, this is an honor. This is an honor to be a part of this fight, even though you're risking everything. You're risking losing your business. You got a bunch of little kids, little mouths to feed. And yet, I think it was in the Federalist, they said something about, it was strange to see that you have a joy and that you couch this, what's happened to you, which most people would think is a terrible thing that's happened to you. You say it's a joy. It's an honor to be a part of that. Can you elaborate a little bit on that? What do you mean by it being an honor to even suffer now for your beliefs in the Catholic feast in the month?
Yes, because I am unworthy, just like we all are. And I didn't know any of this was going to happen, right? And I'm like I've said, I'm just right. I'm riding. I'm here along for the ride, and so I can sense that great God's love, that great love of God to honor our desires to serve Him, as Charles Coulomb says, when children grow up and they or he meets young men who are now monarchists, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he says something like, the question isn't when you became a monarchist, but when you stopped being one, right? So that you had to become one again.
Right.
Well, we all grow up wanting to serve a king and we want to be knights, right? But we're all very, I think, literally given that opportunity in every moment of our lives. And so, yes, it is a great honor to serve the king. And I don't know what to say. It's almost like I certainly don't deserve the opportunity to serve him. And I've more than anything, I felt just the overwhelming outpouring of divine love for me and my family in allowing us to just be here and be part of it and promote the Sacred Heart of Jesus. And that is why, yes, certainly I'm, as a fallible human being, worried about my own proclivity towards vice. And I certainly don't want to get in the way of Christ's mission here. So no, yes, it's an honor. It's hard to express, but it runs very deep. My family history even, my family uniquely, we have our written history from like the 1500s, but we know that by looking at our crest and from the sort of the heraldry books, that the 3 upturned crescents on our crest means that our family fought in 3 crusades. And they were French nobility from the southwest of France, and that sort of continued into and why I'm so, probably why I can't express myself very well right now is I am certainly going through a lot of human emotions about all of this, but
sure.
The devotion to the Sacred Heart and the King of France being responsible to promote it. The first and most important promoter of the Sacred Heart is the King of France. No matter where he is and who he is, it's still his job before it is any of ours. It is our job as well, but he has the primary duty. My family lost their lands in the Revolution. They were chased off of their ancestral lands. My ancestor hid in the house that he had rented to a priest in a neighboring village from the revolutionary, the new police. And eventually my great-great-great-grandfather wrote a brochure called Rome ou Malta, or Rome or Malta, basically about the upheaval, the upturn of the thrones and the altars. And he uses that phrase. And the damage of revolution to Europe and to culture and to tradition and to the faith and the assault on the papacy and the assault on the monarchies. And he wrote this 2 years, it was published in Paris 2 years before he left for Louisiana. as if he was saying, I have to go elsewhere to rebuild Christendom.
Mhm.
So I'm sorry if I'm being long-winded here, but
No, not at all. Not at all. It's
so
important.
I can't begin to describe, I guess, the depth of the honor
Mhm.
to follow in the footsteps of my family.
Sure, sure. No, it's a misconception that our Lord appeared to St. Margaret Mary Alacoque to initiate the devotion to the Sacred Heart of Jesus. It had already been happening for a long time. That devotion already existed. What he came to ask her to do was spread it throughout the whole world. And the reason he asked her to spread it throughout the whole world was so that the world would know how much he loves him. That's why I asked you that rather sarcastic question, are you a hater? Because it's just the opposite. We're trying to share the love of Jesus Christ for the world at a time when people are so desperate. And even as LGBT people, all these folks are so lost. They're looking for something to believe in. They're brokenhearted. They're destroyed. The church really isn't there for them. And that's why I wanted to talk to you, because the idea is not, it's an honor for me because I'm a superhero. The idea is we concentrate, I think, especially for our young people, too much on the duty to stand for Christ, which it is. We have a duty to stand for him. But right now, when so much of the world is lost and has betrayed him, it's also an honor. And I think especially young people need the message. And that's why to have you out in the public eye right now saying this and suffering for this, I think it's a big deal. And it's not always easy. Like you said, you didn't ask for it. None of us do. But when God puts us in these positions, it seems to me we have to do what you've done. Just own it and respectfully go through the process so people will understand that's what's required of us as followers of Jesus Christ. Not because we're better than everybody else, but because God's given us this opportunity to share his love with the world at a very desperate time. And is that how you see it?
Yes. It was how I think Joan of Arc said it. A lot of people misquote her. They say, I am not afraid, I was born to do this, which is really like a redaction or a paraphrase of what she said, which really what she was saying was, I'm not afraid because God has made clear the route, that leads to the Dauphin and then she says it was for this that I was born. So it's not about, like she wasn't saying, for instance, I'm Wonder Woman.
Right. Exactly right. Yeah.
I'm not afraid, I was born to do this. It's me. I've got this. Right. And and that's why she became unfortunately, feminists picked up on Joan of Arc and co-opted her symbol because of that shortening, that abridgment, right, of what she said, which is what she actually said was, I do not fear the soldiers, for my road is made open to me. And if the soldiers come, I have God, my Lord, who will know how to clear the route. That leads to Messire, the Dauphin. It was for this that I was born. And so the reference for her was always to God, who will clear the route. And I'm no Joan of Arc because, my personal sanctity is extremely lacking. But I can say that since I have begun whatever journey this is and wherever it's leading, I have felt like I've stepped off a cliff and God has built a bridge under my feet as he directs me where to go. And it simply is astounding. The people who have, and I would say I'm not alone because the fact that my family is not in dire straits right now, it's because many Catholics have stepped up to support us. And many friends who are not Catholic, who are in extreme danger of becoming Catholic, have stepped up to help us. And we know that we're just members of this army and that we're brothers in arms with everyone around us. And we happen to be the instrument that God used, but we're not the only instrument he's using.
Yeah. I think it's a very important point. You see in the Vendée, for example, those guys didn't just jump off holy cards. I mean, they were hardened soldiers and military men who almost had to be cajoled into fighting the war. But they, to a man, died martyrs' deaths because they understood the responsibility. But they weren't just so holy, and that's why they engaged in the battle for altar and throne. They just saw it as their duty, and God's grace worked for the rest of them. Let me ask you this: how's your family doing? Are your kids all right? Are they feeling threatened or kind of afraid right now, or how's it going?
My children are, by God's grace, able at this very moment to be nothing but children, and they are doing very, very well.
Yeah.
Very, very overjoyed to be able to say. And myself and my wife are doing very well, and we've been well provided for. We are not destitute. we are far beyond destitute, I would have to say,
Mhm.
and far away from I don't think that that word could fit into our vocabulary at the very moment. So
Mhm.
um, no, we're doing very well. We have friends who are even helping us at the farm, and receiving anyone who stops by, and also handling. There's a couple orders that have to go out from Catholic chefs in Louisiana, like Chef John Folse, who is sort of like a faithful son of the church, who is also a father of Louisiana cuisine. He literally wrote encyclopedias on Cajun and Creole cuisine. So,
Mhm.
who wants to support us, and there are others as well. Another Catholic chef, Chef John Besh, reached out to me recently, who wants to help. And so
Mhm.
I don't. It's so hard to explain. We've gone from those feelings of extreme distress to just being overwhelmed by God's love and His providence.
Mhm.
So we're all doing very well, and I very much appreciate you asking. I very much appreciate everyone who has supported us and who is praying for us, most especially. And I would just say, if you want to support us, pray for us, or pray to the Sacred Heart. Make your novena. Begin your devotion to the Sacred Heart. Enthrone your home to the Sacred Heart, which you can do, by the way, if you can't get a priest to come because he's busy, because a lot of our priests, as traditional Catholics, are very busy. You can do the enthronement yourself. It's designed that way. So you're not doing something weird by doing that.
So excuse me for interrupting. You are a traditional Catholic. Do you attend the traditional Latin Mass as well?
Well, of course.
Okay. But, kind of figured, but I need to clarify that.
No, I'm sorry. I don't mean to be flippant. I'm just, I will say this. I've been at the traditional Latin Mass for a couple of years. And of course that's a very difficult process for all of us, as we realize that the traditional Latin Mass really gives us the faith.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, and I don't think that, I don't know what would have happened had I not had the just that the Mass itself is transformative.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what to say, except that I feel that really my Catholicism became real when I started attending the traditional Latin Mass, and I was at the Novus Ordo for over 2 decades. So no, it's transformative. So if that's not where you're going, if you're listening to this, at least go. Don't try to understand it. Just be there and behold the Mass that can be traced to apostolic times, that has literally been given to us by the apostles through the ages. And I mean, you can imagine the saints next to you when you're there, and they are next to you, actually. Right. So no, I owe everything to those who, I owe so much to those who brought me to tradition, certainly.
Right. One last question I wanted to ask you, because I looked at your Instagram and I saw what you went through in terms of, and everybody gets trolls, I get that, but there was such vehemence, there was such animosity, and it just seems so misplaced. You're just a Catholic guy who wants to, honor the Sacred Heart of Jesus. It's really not that big of a deal from the world's point of view, and yet it seems like you were attacked by almost a demonic thing. And I wonder, do you see that as the result of ignorance, or do you feel like you're up against raw evil when you see somebody attack you merely for your religious beliefs like this?
It's a difficult question. Just from my own observation of the world, which is by no means exact and accurate, I have definitely found that unless people come to us asking, I don't know if we're at a point where we can really persuade those who hate us. Which is why it's come to this point. I guess perhaps that is accurate, because this is the example of what happens. It's a reaction of irrational anger, right? Pure rage, because like I guess I've said before, there's no philosophical underpinning to the position.
Yeah.
And so all that's left to support it is force and anger. Whatever force, however we can retaliate, that's what's left to support those that type of lifestyle, we'll say. And whereas for us, as you said, we have 2,000 years of theology, of the teachings of the church, of the tradition. And so, but underneath all of that is the knowledge of God's love for us and for all humanity. And so, the final response of love is, I suppose, just absolute opposition. Because at some point, words only do so much. And apparently what they do now is cause anger and cause rage. And if that's where we're at, I don't know what's next. So that's just my humble musings. I'm not a great intellect, but that's my experience, at least, I'll say.
Yeah, it's much the same as mine. I think family and tradition and the Mass, like you're talking about the history of your own family, the unity of your own family, your young family, your kids, trying to find holiness, trying to get to heaven. In the middle of all this, I mean, it seems like it's almost an impossible task. On the other hand, if you didn't have any of those things, how would you stand up against the winds that are blowing right now, against you, against the church, against everyone? So it is really a grace to see how many people have kept the faith and they're willing to fight. And that's why, again, I'm so grateful for you coming on our show to say, don't be so afraid, just stand up and fight. The world doesn't really have much. The world is lost right now. And when somebody like yourself stands up and fights, again, like you said earlier, you're not trying to be a hero. You're just doing your duty as a father and as a man. It has an impact all around the world. I heard about you just a few days ago. You're in New Orleans. I'm in Minnesota, and boom, somebody's doing it. Somebody's standing up. So that's the main thing. I don't mean to flatter you, but I wanted to thank you for showing us, like I say, it started off the top of the interview, putting into action what we all talk about, and we all hope we're going to do this. I mean, let's face it. Do you really want to live? We're all going to be dead in a few years anyway. Do you want to just live as long as you can, or do you want to stand and fight while you're young and able to fight, and maybe your life is shortened because of that, but you go out in a way that with honor, and in which maybe someday they'll tell our story like we tell the stories of the Vondeans and the Cristeros and everybody else. So thanks for that example. I really appreciate that, and I hope a lot of people will prayerfully consider the stand that you and your family have taken and realize that's what we all have to do. That's what the obligation. That's why God put us here in the first place at this particular time. So what about you say, I can't hardly believe my ears. You say you don't need help, but you must need some help. Can we plug you into, do you have a GoFundMe thing that we can, I mean, I'll be happy to share with my viewers that you're not out here trying to make money off this, but we'd also, if you need any help, we'd be happy to help you there as well.
I've consulted someone you've met during the Chartres pilgrimage, and his advice to me was to say this, which is that, yes, there's a give, send, go, but my family, it's insane that people took up this cause and they donated to help us. But now, believe it or not, we're sufficiently taken care of. And I would say if you want to donate, you're welcome to, but what we're going to do is those who are our spiritual directors have told us to set up a fund to help whoever's next,
Yeah.
Whoever.
Okay.
And so if you would like to donate, know that, we're taken care of. I'll be completely transparent with you. I don't know what the number is exactly right now on GoSendGo. So there's some fudging here. I have to go write down the number, and then whatever happens above that is going to go into a fund to help whoever goes to the metaphorical guillotine next, right? Mm-hmm. But that's not the right metaphor to use, because I don't feel that I am. It's God's blessings are overwhelming. I don't know what to say, but I think we'll be fine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, God is good, right? And that's fantastic. You took a stand, and you're okay.
Yes, unbelievably and overwhelmingly good.
Yeah. Ross, I could talk to you all day, but I know you're a busy guy and you got a business to run and kids to. Are you a homeschool dad, by the way? You guys homeschool?
Yeah, man. Probably not the best one.
Yeah.
But yeah, we homeschool, and of course the children are on the farm all day, so they get that exposure. My oldest son has got his job, and he's getting better and better at it every day. But definitely encourage that, and definitely encourage as much as you can. It's interesting being at home with my children. There's so much work to do. It can be like and if you are working from home, many people are now, it can feel like you're still kind of working away, but it's important to break things up and to have a meal with them and let them know you're around. So anyway, yeah, but we homeschool on the farm. Yeah.
I'm going to come down and see you sometime. It sounds like a great setup you got there.
I really hope you do come down. I wanted to say it's an honor to speak with you, and by no means is this flattery, but you and those before you, your father, Michael Davies, all those who have been in this fight, you've laid down the path for us, and you've shown us where to go. And so, and you've all been, in an analogical sense, fathers to us all. And so I'm extremely grateful for really being given the faith by so many brave men, and given the example. So thank you, and may God bless you.
Thank you. I really appreciate hearing that. And if the situation should change and you need some help, get in touch with us, and we'll work on that too. But I think God's going to take care of you. I think you're going to be good. So thank you again. Thanks for doing this. God bless you, and I really appreciate you taking some time to be on our show today.
God bless you, and thank you for promoting the Sacred Heart. And now you're in trouble. Well, of course, you've already been promoting the Sacred Heart. I have that pin that you had made.
Do you? Okay. If you know anybody down there that wants the pin, you let me know. I'll send you a bag of them.
Oh, I will let you know for sure. I'm sure there are many men down there who are very inspired by you, and of course by the Vendée Uprising. We're having a Sacred Heart procession this Sunday, and we'll be singing Le Chant de Fidélité and flying on Sacred Heart flags. So. Excellent.
Hey, send me some pictures of that. I'll put it in the paper. That sounds fantastic.
Yeah, sure, we will. If I can, I'll get somebody to take pictures. Yeah.
That'd be great. Thanks a lot, Ross. I really appreciate it. All the best to your family, and God bless what you're doing. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Pour Dieu et le roi.
All right. We'll see you.